All
No
right.
pressure. No pressure, Haley.
All right. So a career in policing, here's our take. Just to introduce our speakers a little bit more, get to know them, I'd like to ask each one of you, how long have you worked here and where have you worked as part of your career at NWPD? Let's start with Sergeant Tom.
Yeah. So I got hired in 2009. So I am coming up onto my 14th or completing my 14th year in November of this year. I spent my first 5 years on patrol and on Sea Watch. I am a Sea Watcher for life, probably. Best watch, if you ask me. After patrol, I was able to take a secondment at the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team for 3 years. From there, I actually came back to our major crime unit. So I did that for a number of years until actually last June when I was promoted, and I'm now the person responsible for recruiting and HR here at New West.
Lovely. And let's go to Sergeant Lara Jansen.
So I was hired in January of 2008. So I guess I have just started my 16th year. And I have, I know, and it's flown. It's totally flown. It's crazy. And I've had a really great opportunity to go to a bunch of different units. I started in patrol. Everybody starts in patrol. Had a really great time. I spent about 3.5 years there before I got a spot on what was then called our operational support unit. It's changed names a few times, but the mandate's still the same. It's now called the crime reduction unit. Back then we spent the majority of our time on bicycles, so I got to come to work and ride a bike for 10 hours a day, and especially coming back from mat leave, that was quite wonderful. After that, I went back to patrol as a road supervisor. I spent a couple years doing that. Since I started in policing, I really wanted to go to the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. And that opportunity came up for me at about 10 years service. So I went there, I spent 4 years there, had an absolute blast there. And then I came back, did a complete U-turn and came back to patrol after that. Oddly enough, I went to Sea Watch. Justine was talking about Sea Watch.
Sea Watch.
Entirely changed since Justine was on Sea Watch, but so I'd been on B Watch, I'd been on A Watch, I went to Sea Watch, and then I went to D Watch. So I've actually been on all the watches. Last year I had another cool opportunity to take another secondment to the BC Witness Security Unit. It's a plainclothes unit that works out of headquarters, the RCMP headquarters, and I was seconded there for a few months until I got promoted to sergeant, and then I came back to the road, spent a couple months on the road, and then for the last almost year, I have been the sergeant in charge of our in-house gang suppression unit. So I've really done a ton of things, and it has been fantastic.
You wear many hats.
Several hats.
And Corporal Mila, if you have a moment, I know you're busy. How long have you worked at NWPD and where have you worked at NWPD?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me? Okay. So I have worked for the New Westminster Police Department for almost 11 years. I started in patrol. I was not Sea Watch. I was D Watch. I would probably say patrol is a section that I really enjoyed. I can think of many times where, you know, I saw the most interesting things, the funniest circumstances. Every day was always different, so it was never the same. And I liked that diversity of being able to come in and have something different and something challenging every day. So if you're looking for something that isn't boring, patrol is definitely one of the most exciting spots I was in since joining the department. I worked in patrol for about 5 years. And after patrol, I went to a gang project, also a secondment that was already mentioned. That was really neat because this comment, I got to work with other agencies and I got to learn different investigative tactics that maybe I hadn't been exposed to before. After working on a project, I returned to the major crime unit where I am now. So I've been here since 2018. I went on maternity leave last year, and upon my return, I moved into the corporal position. And here I am.
And you're rocking it.
I'm trying.
In the major crime unit.
You've been very busy. You have been very busy.
Definitely a busy spot. Yes.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. I'm going to now throw things over to Sergeant Tom, who's going to get us started with some more questions.
Yeah. Do you want to give a little bit of an explanation of the Q&A feature?
Oh, thank you for the reminder. So for those who aren't familiar, at the bottom of your screen on Zoom here, you'll see a Q&A button. So if during the presentation you have a question, feel free to click on that button, type your question in, and we will try to get to as many of your questions as possible towards the end of our chat here.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
So it was recruiting that initiated this webinar panel, and traditionally in recruiting we've done lots of information sessions. So this isn't set up to be an information session. This is more of a conversation to kind of get our thoughts and opinions and 2 cents about this career. I ended up separating the questions into 3 kind of separate categories. One being our paths to policing, the second being our actual careers in policing, and the third being what it takes to succeed. So obviously this is coming from our brains, so you're getting just the direct info, unfiltered. I'm gonna start with you, Laura. Do you think that you could tell me what the circumstances were when you actually thought to yourself, I want to be a police officer?
It was so long ago, I don't actually remember. I was a very, very young child, and it was entirely based on nothing but positive influences. Growing up, my next door neighbor, so back in the 80s, way back in the 80s, when I was just a young 4-year-old.
You mean the 90s?
Our next door neighbor, he was a sergeant here in New Westminster, so I used to see him in his uniform. Obviously, I called him Mr. B. I knew him as a super friendly neighbor, but I also knew he was a police officer, and he was so warm and so positive all the time. I just thought, oh, I want to do what that guy does. Another personal connection was, again, way back in the 80s, actually, it was in the 60s. My oldest family friend, her grandfather was the chief in New Westminster, Charlie Mackey. And so that was just another positive influence that I had, just sort of being surrounded by police officers. Another thing I got involved in very, very young was the New Westminster Police Soccer School. Every year we've had it for, I don't even know what we're up to now. I want to say we're pushing like 40 years. And it was a really
running again in July.
I know, I can't wait. I'm super pumped. So I went to that every summer, and my 2 older brothers would go to that every summer as well. And it was this event put on by the local police, and it was just, back then it was 2 weeks, and it was just a blast of playing soccer and hanging out with police officers. And they would bring their really cool cars up, and they would put on displays, often, you know, canine displays or these mock things were different in the 80s, so they would put on these massive mock robberies and stuff in the field up at the high school. But as kids, it was really cool, and it was really exciting. And more so, I got to know a lot of the officers just on a human level, and it just fostered my desire to want to go and work in my community as a police officer.
How about you, Jax? Do you think you could, I will repeat the question for you, but what was like the moment where you decided that policing was for you? When did you decide you wanted to do this?
I think I had always had an interest in law enforcement, but when I grew up where I was involved in dancing and I didn't play a lot of sports, and I kind of always considered myself wimpy. So although I had an interest in the field and I enjoyed watching, the detective shows like Law and Order or even some of the Dateline episodes, I always thought that was cool and wondered what that would be like to have that as a job. I never thought it was something that I could do. So I think the tipping point for me was I did do some criminology studies, but saw all these people, following the law enforcement path, but figured that wasn't for me. But something I knew I was good at was talking to people. So I think when I realized I was at the bank at that point in my career, and I dealt a lot with fraud. And so officers would come in and talk to me on a regular basis. And so I had a lot of exposure, I guess, speaking to police officers, and realized that maybe I'm not so different. And there was a particular female that stood out to me. I could actually see her right now. And she came in and she'd be investigating these fraud files that I would have. And I remember thinking, you know what, I could do this too. I think I could be like her. And I think that was the tipping moment for me that I realized I wanted to pursue this career in law enforcement.
For me, I know if anybody's tuning in that's heard me ever talk about myself, I apologize, because you're gonna hear some repeats. But I grew up in a policing family. So my dad was in the end, when he retired, like a 45-year Mountie, which is like forever. And from a very young age, I always found it really interesting. Like Jax, I always really loved, the police shows on TV. That was always exciting for me. Growing up, I think I had like a ton of, I would call them fleeting moments where I thought to myself, like, maybe I'll go into law, or I volunteered at a halfway house here in US prior to getting hired on as a police officer. And I had moments of thinking like, maybe like I could do something with corrections as like a parole officer. I knew the realm that I wanted to be in was the criminal justice system, but every single time I had one of those like fleeting moments, it always came back to policing. But like, no, this is what I want to do. Like 100%, no doubt in my mind. Like, I know that this is going to be my passion. So for me, it was kind of, I don't know if you want to say it was like set in stone, which is really funny because I have two brothers and neither of them have any interest whatsoever in policing. This would have been like their last choice of careers for either of them. And obviously it's what I signed up to do and love. What has interested you, or what interested you most about policing, Laura? Other than the cool cars and
right, I was like, let's talk about the cool car. Yeah, I like in the 90s, the US police had a Camaro. Like seriously, that's I mean,
I actually, yeah, I've seen photos of Camaro.
And I actually think it was quote me if I'm wrong, Haley, you may know better than this, but I think it was actually financed by ICBC specifically as a traffic car. But in any event, cool cars, but the variety for sure. And I think with the three of us talking about our careers, you can see like in our, each of us have 10 plus years policing, but we've done so many different things. And I knew that going in again, I knew it wasn't just about driving around and doing the typical uniform thing, which is what excited me most at the time. But I knew that there was more to it in relation to, or in terms of the detective work, the investigative work, plainclothes work, drug squad. And I am not a square box 9 to 5 sitting at a desk for 25 years kind of person. And I just knew the variety that I would get out of this job would allow me to get out of the office, would allow me to get out into the community, walk around, enjoy my community, and really be an integral part of making this community a better place to live. So it was really like the variety of and Jack's kind of mentioned this on patrol. You come into work every day, you don't know where you're going to get, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Like predictability is okay, but I don't know. I like a little chaos once in a while.
Honestly, I think it's and Jack's already had mentioned this, but like it 1000% is the same thing for me. I had, prior to policing, had a bunch of kind of administrative type jobs, if you want to say. I worked as a civilian with the RCMP in a few different spots. And although I liked those jobs and I liked the environment, I liked the people that I worked with, I found that the day-to-day was pretty repetitive. And obviously you're stuck in the confines of an office, which is really funny because my job now is administrative and in the office. But the thing about policing that really excited me, that I really wanted to do, was to go and do a career where you don't know what every day is going to bring you. You do not know, who you're going to talk to, what you're going to come across. You have like the highs and lows of adrenaline of all of a sudden be dealing with one high stress thing to then be dealing with something that's super low key. And that was incredibly appealing to me. I don't know if you want to add your 2 cents on that, Jax, but like what appealed to you most about policing?
I think that sometimes your idea of being a police officer isn't actually what it is. So I think what appealed to me was that I was going to always be putting bad guys away and, stopping those people that break into my car. And yes, that's all true, but there's so much more to it that I didn't know. And I'm just so happy that I took that leap, because there is so much more to it than that. But I think, to be honest, what appealed to me was that part of it, was making a difference, but also being able to, I guess, prevent some crime or hold people accountable for things that maybe had affected me directly. And then, of course, what I'd already mentioned, and we talked about the CSI and Dateline shows,
which I can tell you, some of those are not necessarily accurate to real life, but
I'm
able to watch.
I'm still a fan. So even though I do this for a living, I'm still a fan of those shows.
I think both of you are probably very good examples of this, in that like your kind of careers prior to policing are not necessarily those like box ticking, very stereotypical prior police jobs. Like there's a lot of people that think you have to do A, B, and C to become police officers. Obviously, Jax, you worked in a bank, and Laura, do you want to elaborate on what you used to do?
Make it sound so mysterious, but
Yeah.
so for a lot of my working life, I've had a ton of jobs that dealt with people, and honestly, that the ability to interact with people. I worked in retail, I worked in the service industry, bars, to be able to interact with the public is the most important thing, especially in a bar situation, because I'm sure all of us can imagine or know how things can sometimes get quite volatile in a bar or restaurant situation. But oddly enough, so I knew I always wanted to apply to policing. I also knew at 20 years old, I was way too young. I didn't have the life experience or the maturity for me at that time. So I actually looked to see what else I could do in the meantime. And I had a real interest in journalism. So I actually went to BCIT and I took the radio broadcast program. And then I came out of there and I went into marketing and promotions. And I did that for about 6 years. So that was nothing but working at trade shows, coming up with contests that went on the air, giving out concert tickets, to disappointed fans who were hoping to win the other concert tickets. And then in the 2 years just before I got into policing, I was actually an on-air radio presenter as a traffic reporter up in a helicopter. So you want to talk about high stress?
Yeah, you were the eye in the sky.
Yeah, I was the actual eye in the sky. That was the branding for the radio station that I worked at. But, you want to talk about high stress, be in a helicopter with over 25 knots of wind. But that job, holy Hannah, I had to think on my feet. I never knew what the morning host was going to say to me. He was a incredibly amazing lifetime career journalist, a career in journalism, I should say. Super quick wit. I had to be prepared for literally anything he was going to say to me and be prepared to roll with it, all while in a helicopter just trying to manage the wind on some days. So super varied career leading up to it. And then I just ended up staying in radio for much longer than I expected to. And then finally one day I just made the decision, today's the day. Today's the day that I stop this and move on to what I really want to do.
So from that, I mean, obviously you talked a lot about like customer service and stuff and just the high stress situations. Obviously that I feel like has probably benefited you in this career for sure. I would say like for me, I had a lot of, admin, customer service related positions to this prior. Of my previous, like I say experiences, I'm actually gonna say I used to volunteer at a halfway house here in New Westminster. And although I had all that customer service experience, which was great, and I used to work for the Canadian Firearms Program and a lot of interesting telephone conversations. However, the halfway house, a lot of it was like experiencing conflict management. Here I am as at that time like a 20, I think I was 22. Actually, I volunteered there for a whole lot of time. So it was like from 20 up until like about 23, where you're dealing with federal male offenders. So you're dealing with people that are, some of them, people that are throughout their entire lives will be involved in the criminal justice system, and having to navigate all of the stuff that comes with that was very eye-opening, and I would say definitely allowed for some like development of what I would call like our competencies in like conflict management, decision making, all of those things. But customer service is definitely huge.
Justine, I was just going to say, just keeping an eye on the time.
I know. Let's move on to the next little section here, maybe.
There we go.
Okay, let's talk about kind of like our careers in policing. Do you want to give me, I know you got many, but give me a career highlight. Laura.
Okay. I was like, I don't see Jax over there.
This is you. Jax is currently dealing with a career highlight.
Yeah,
probably.
I just see a blurred background there. Career highlight. There's honestly so many, but if I had to pick, say, two different things, I will say in relation to a position that I held, I hit. There, you know, we're a small department here, but we have a ton, like dozens of secondment opportunities. I was able to go to IHIT. I spent 4 years, and just the different variety of work that you're exposed to there, wiretaps, police agent files, witness relocation, just major case management, these extremely high level, high intense investigations, to be able to learn that and see that unfold. It's I think Jax had said, you know, we come to work and we're doing things that you never really imagine you would be doing in policing, aside from, you know, you think, oh, we're just going to be out there catching people. You know, I never thought that I would be involved in a wire file, and I was so thankful for it. It was incredibly cool. On top of all the other really great things that IHIT does that I got to be a part of. The other career highlight is really getting to be a part of a community where my friends and my family are here. I have a vested interest in keeping this community safe and keeping it running like a well-oiled machine on the public safety side of things. And I am so honored to be a part of it that it truly is the overarching highlight for my entire career here.
I think you and I probably have very similar kind of career highlights, but back when I got hired, one of my brothers used to tease me about getting a job here because it's, you know, little old New West, and used to joke like, what are you going to deal with all the time? Like stolen lawnmowers. And granted, we do get stolen lawnmowers within the city of New Westminster, as you do anywhere else. One of my like career highlights is actually more of an ongoing thing, in that the amount of, I'm going to say like large scale like investigations that we have been able to do here that I myself have been able to, you know, some of them been able to actually like direct and navigate, where you're using things like, yeah, wiretap investigations or undercover operators or there's so many cool things that you can do investigatively, and knowing that our department has been able to utilize those tools successfully, and be able to, I don't know, bring justice to people and actually make an impact in your community. All of those are pretty cool feelings. Same with, and I'm sure you could speak about this in the witness management side, but dealing with people that have been victims of crime that I would say have spent a good chunk of their lives within, you know, the criminal lifestyle, so to speak, and being able to actually impact them so much that you've been able to change their lives to the positive, like that to me, and actually having somebody say to you, like, thank you for what you've done for me. Thank you for putting up with me. Like, you've actually changed my life. Like, those comments and things like that, I think will forever stick with me and prove to me, you know, why I do this job and why I want to do this job. It's those moments would be a big one.
Absolutely, they so impactful, whether it's a small child or a grown adult who's just decided that, you know, they want to change their life or change something. It's to be able to be a part of it is pretty fantastic.
It was pretty awesome. I will
It was
admit,
pretty awesome.
I really love my time there.
It is pretty awesome.
I honestly, which is really, it's interesting, because if I look back at my entire career, I can think of things that have happened every way along that I have loved, that will stick with me forever as being like, this is something that's pretty cool. And everyone has stories like that. I feel like if you were to talk to anybody that works here, they'd be able to give you like career highlights in every point, whether it's patrol, whether it's IHIT, whether it's major crime, whether it's recruiting, like whether it's gangs, like you're gonna have those for sure. I know I'm throwing this on you here, Jax. Do you got a career highlight?
Ooh, I have so many. Probably when I worked a project, because it was a shorter project, and we on this project we targeted a certain group of criminal organizations, so to speak, and I got to learn new things. I got to work with other agencies. I had a really positive outcome in the end. I think that was one of the highlights for me. And I think right now too, I'm really enjoying the position that I'm in right now and the unit that I'm in. We've got a lot of, you know, fast moving files that we work. So that's probably a second highlight for me, for sure.
I'll admit I've had moments in the last couple of weeks where I've missed major crime a little bit. Love recruiting, but investigations has always been like kind of my like bread and butter, and pretty cool. We get to do cool things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll hit you with a question, Jax, before you probably have to run away again on something. But and this is maybe bad timing for this question, but how you found work-life balance in your career? You're like, this is a bad question.
Yeah, you've kind of like very convenient timing here, because I feel like I'm living here right now. I think you make it work. And I can say that working for this police agency, this department, it is like a family, and I've had amazing supportive bosses that recognize the importance between work-life balance. So I do think that, and I think other people can probably agree with me, that that's something that New Westminster Police takes very seriously, and they do encourage healthy work-life balance. There is going to be those times though where you've got a really serious file that you're investigating, and you know, I don't know, be really dramatic here, but preservation of life, will take priority in that moment. So that does happen. But for the most part, I do enjoy the fact that I have a very supportive boss and management team that does recognize and promote work-life balance, for sure.
Laura, do you want to speak to that at all?
You know what? I actually don't have a ton to add, but I will echo that this organization promotes and really fosters family. We are our own little big family here. Bunch of brothers and sisters, bunch of uncles, bunch of aunts, and we really take care of each other, and we really support our own individual families and the time that we need to spend with them. So it's always manageable.
Yeah, I mean, I asked a question that I obviously going to give the same answer on here, but I've been able to have 2 kids. I have 2 small kids at home, and even while I was in major crime, I never felt that I wasn't able to have my own life. Yeah, there is kind of those highs and lows where you might be dealing with something that takes a lot of your time in that moment, but there's a lot of give and take. So I've always found that if you're having to give a bit more here, you can take a bit more here, and have always been really impressed with the support from my supervisors and our management in recognizing that, like, you have to have a life outside of policing. Not only is that needed, long term, it's actually needed just for your mental health. You have to have both. You have to be able to have, your life with your friends and your family and your support network. To just be able to navigate this career. It's pretty awesome to be able to have both. Let's see here. Well, I got 87 screens open on my other thing over here. So obviously we are all in leadership roles. How do you two feel about the ability to actually mentor that next generation? Other than the fact that I signed you up for this webinar. Laura, do you want to give me your 2 cents?
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait to continue on, throughout my career in a position where I have the ability to mentor and sort of foster the career aspirations of those coming up. And it's entirely because I think of those leaders that were in place when I got hired 15 and a bit years ago. There were 2 or 3 in particular that had a direct impact on me and the decisions I made and the career path that I chose. And it's kind of, like paying it forward. I just, I want to give the more junior members coming up, I want to give them all the tools that I was given and all the support that I was given in order, to achieve what I wanted throughout this career. So I love it. I think it's awesome. I love it.
How about you, Jax? Mentorship.
Mm-hmm. So I echo a lot of Laura's sentiments. When I first joined, yes, there was those female leaders, but we actually didn't have very many at the time. And so I'm excited to be part of this new generation, because I think representation is huge. And so when you're looking to go into a career and you maybe don't see people, that look like you, it's hard to imagine yourself in that role. And so when I joined, yes, there was, the odd, strong, good female mentor, but we didn't have as much as we do today. And so I am excited to be part of, this new generation of female leaders. And I'm hoping that maybe, for someone new that's coming into the career, don't know if you guys, touched upon this earlier, but for me, I had some doubt and I wasn't really sure. And it's those strong female role models and mentors that can make such a difference. And so I'm hoping to be able to be that mentor for someone else. That's in my position.
I would say for me, what's interesting when it comes to a career in policing is there are lots of careers out there that are, I'm going to say, like pretty individual based. Like you have your own goals, and sometimes it's up to you to navigate those. Which one of the things that I love about policing is it is such a team environment, and you never have to go it alone. Like there's always someone there to support you, to help you navigate kind of what is going on, whether it be a file, whether it be just something to do with the department. And for me, one of the things that I actually really love about recruiting is my job is also actually navigating recruits that are going through the GI right now, and being able to have conversations with new recruits or new hires and pass on knowledge and all of those things. Like having mentorship is huge, but also for me was having mentorship was huge. So like for sure where I have gotten, I would say in my career, and who knows where it's going to go from here, but it was also came from having great mentors to like assist you along the way. So being able to do that and kind of, pay it forward is like a pretty fulfilling feeling, I would say. Where is somewhere that you want to take your career? Laura? No pressure. Give away the secrets. What do you want to do?
You know what? I mean, one of the things that you really need to be prepared for in this career is just to roll with things and just kind of be open to whatever arrives on your doorstep. And that's really what I want. I want, I've had my goals in my career, obviously, that I want to attain and positions that I want to go to and sections that I want to go to, but I'm also more than happy to have my eyes opened in front of me to something that I really wasn't maybe expecting. So, it seems like I'm like dodging your question a little bit here, but I don't want to divulge my secrets of where I want to go, but I love this job so much, and I love this career, and there are so many incredible opportunities, especially with our department, that I want to go where naturally I am the best fit, both for me and for the organization.
I think that's a good answer. How about you, Jax? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
Yeah, that was a really safe answer.
I'll tell you later what I want to do.
I like that.
There's the off-camera answer and the on-camera.
Tell you later.
You know what? To be very honest, I have no idea. I'm really excited, kind of similar, I guess, to see what's next for me. When I first joined and I was in patrol, they do something like a career check-in, and I think it's called a career inventory. And I think my goal at 15 years was to be in major crime. Well, I'm here, I'm already in major crime. And so policing is always changing. There's always new opportunities. There's always new cool secondments that New Westminster is, joining. And if we're using a word that like secondment means you get to go and you get to work in another place and still be a police officer. And so there's always new units and stuff that get added. So I'm sure something else will come my way, but maybe to go back to the road and maybe mentor, the police officers that are on the road, because right now I am in that invest field. So that might be what's next for me. But I'm open to anything, really, for sure.
Which I feel like we're all given safe answers here.
Where do you want to go, Jesse? You're up.
What's funny is if you looked at my career inventory from when I first started to now, they'd be very different because if I'm being honest, so like November 2021. So 2021. Yeah. I was just coming back to work from mat leave actually. And I had a colleague that had said, a mentor that had said, the promotional competition is probably coming up. You should put your name in. And I laughed at him. I was like, I'm not putting my name in for that, like not a chance. And ended up talking about it with my mentor, talked about it with my my husband, and ended up deciding that, yeah, no, I am going to put my name in for our promotional competition. And obviously in June, I was promoted into the spot. But had you asked me like 10 years ago, there's no way I would be in recruiting, and there's no way I'd be a sergeant. So it's very interesting because, like, as you meet different challenges within your career, you gain new experiences. It totally exposes you to all these different things that you never thought you'd do. When I first got hired, I remember, I'm sure you two could probably speak to this as well, but our street crime unit, like, that was like the sexy spot that people want. It's like people want to go to street crime because you do like drug work and you do surveillance and, like, you know, there's lots of that's the cool section. People want to go there. And I thought, like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. And I did a mini secondment to street crime when I was on patrol. It was like 2 weeks long. And at the end of that 2 weeks, I was like, nope, this is not for me. Like, this is not what I want to do. I am the most awkward person on the face of the planet. I cannot do this job. So, like, when you look at career inventories, it's like very different. And yeah, the opportunities that exist, even like in our organization, like, we're a mid-sized policing agency, like, there is so much opportunity, and you don't really know what door is going to open for you and what you're going to find a passion in doing. If you asked Haley, like, about TikToks, I didn't think TikTok was going to be in my future, but it's in there. making silly police TikToks that some people love, some people hate. We get mixed reviews. I'm okay with that. Let's see timing here. Should we move on, Haley, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's time to move on to the last section, which is, let's see here.
Probably
what does it take to succeed?
Okay, tough one. And this is a work-related question, not a personal related question, because your personal advice to yourself would probably be very different from your work advice. But if you could give advice to your younger self, what would it be? Laura, I'm looking at you, but you can't tell that I'm looking at you.
I know, and I looked at Jax, I was like, oh, she's there, but her mic's off. The single piece of advice I would give my younger self about if I'm on the fence or just kind of swirling the drain, waiting to put my application into policing, is don't wait. Just do it. Do not wait. Yeah, you know, I knew I was too young at the time, back when I was 20, and I decided to go into radio, and radio was fantastic. But I spent 8 and a bit years in radio when I could have started my actual dream career 8 years earlier. So don't wait, just do it.
How about you, Jax? Advice for your younger self?
I actually
not personal related.
Yeah, because there's a lot of that too. Mine would actually be a little bit opposite, because I'm glad that I waited a bit, because I think I needed to learn things to make me a stronger applicant. But I think one thing I would tell myself is that I can do this job, because I think what held me back was maybe some of my confidence when I finally did make that decision and I finally was ready. Similar to Laura, I probably should have just applied. But I wanted to have this perfect application, and I wanted to be this perfect person, and I wanted to have all this stuff ready. I should have applied a little sooner. So it's similar. I'm glad I got the experiences that I did prior to policing, because I think that's what makes me a stronger police officer. But I think it was my confidence maybe that held me back, and I should have applied sooner. That's kind of for me. I would have told myself I got this.
Right. What's interesting, I would probably take bits and pieces of what both you've said, actually, as my advice to my younger self. One would be like more of the confidence angle, like just trust yourself that you can do it and just do it. What's interesting in a recruiting side is I actually feel like I have this conversation all the time with people, and that a lot of people think like, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need more of this, I got to do this, I got to do that. And end up that they've like overloaded themselves with experience, and they probably, if they had applied, would have gotten onto this job way sooner than they actually have. The other thing would, for me, my advice would be, don't be discouraged. Because I think and this is actually also a recruiting thing, but a lot of people, when they apply for policing, they may not get in the first time. We for sure have people that have, applied sometimes a few times before they actually get in. But when somebody is deferred from policing, it often comes with advice. Like it comes with, you need to work on this, or you need to work on this. It's about taking that advice and actually running with it and like showing that you can do this. Which this is personal advice maybe, but in back in my history, like because my dad was a Mountie, like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a Mountie. And I applied to the Mounties when I was 21 and was deferred. And I was heartbroken at that time, thinking like my dream is over. When I actually was ready to reapply, it just so happened that I actually met somebody that worked here, convinced me to come on a ride along, instantly fell in love. It was like that ride along that I was like, nope, this is where I want to work. I don't want to be a Mountie. Like I want to work for the New Westminster Police Department. So my personal advice is like really like would be, don't be discouraged. Just because you got a no doesn't mean that it's a no forever. It just means maybe it's a no right now. And these are the things that you got to work on. When it comes to like personality traits, like what do you think personality wise has served you well in this career, Laura?
Compassion. I can tell you that I have developed truly meaningful relationships with people that I have met, members of this community that come from all different walks of life, because of I have a very strong, compassionate gene. And that tells me that I'm in the right job. I am in the right job for sure. That is overarchingly something that we have to have, because you really know, you never know who you're going to be dealing with every day, and where they come from and what their story is and what their trauma may or may not have been in their life. So compassion will do you well. There's so many things, actually. Courage is another one. You have to be courageous. We do a job that not everybody can do. But as long as you go out there and you're courageous and in doing what you do for the right reasons, you're going to be okay. And it's courageous to go into this field right now because things have changed for us. But despite how things have changed in the world, in our organization, the actual job, I don't think has changed too much, and the support that we have and what we actually go out and do every day. And also the courage to just be faced with different things that you may not see. And the other thing is just having the ability to roll with it with some humor. You're going to see things on this job that I can't tell you how many times, and I think Justine and I were chatting about this the other day, how many times in our careers we have said, I did not expect to see that today, or I did not think I was going to be doing this on this job. Because it really is, we're a 24/7 operation, and oftentimes we get calls because there's somebody who doesn't know who else to call. And so sometimes we see the wackiest, or we go to literally the funniest, most unexpected things, and you just kind of have to deal with it, roll with it, have a laugh, and carry on, and then probably talk about it with your coworkers in a did that just happen kind of way, and just laugh.
I've 1,000% had moments where I actually thought to myself, I never thought that I would be doing this in my life. That is what policing is, like 1,000%.
Yeah.
Jax, I don't know if you wanna add in, like what is something that you have found that's a trait or a skill, that served you well in this career?
There's a few. I think to piggyback off what she just said, the humor is really important, but being able to laugh at yourself, because the funniest things do happen, and then I don't know, you also make some of those mistakes, or and so being able to laugh at yourself, and have an open mind about that is also important. like today I was just thinking about it. Obviously I work in major crimes, I work on serious files. And so yes, we deal with, serious subject matter, but just some of the goofy things that, came across my desk, and I had to just laugh at myself because I feel like sometimes, funny, strange things seem to only happen to me. But then when I talk to other people, funny things happen to them too. But I often joke that I should write a book about some of my experiences, because I just feel like they are just so out of this world, and you just have to laugh, sometimes about it, and not at people, but more at me. So not at the other people, but at me, because I just feel like I'm this ridiculous person sometimes. And then I think too, for me, just being authentic and being yourself, because you don't want to be what you think a police officer should be, or what you think that organization is looking for. The New Westminster Police Department, but even other agencies are looking for you. They don't want carbon copies of the same person, because it's so important to have, different experiences and different personalities. And so I think a trait would be being authentic and being a genuine, just who you genuinely are. And then I think something that served me well, because I didn't have, although yes, they really help, but I didn't have the loss prevention experience or, things like that. But one thing that I did have, that sometimes can't be taught, is I can talk to people. So I think that that's really important. You have to have the ability to talk to people, and not just, people that you meet, in the community, but even your coworkers, your supervisors, different things like that. And I think if you can do that, then you can do this job for sure.
Oh, 1,000%. Let's throw some check marks in there. I actually really, as a recruiter, really appreciate that you threw out authentic self in there, because you can very much so tell when somebody comes in here for an interview and they are so prepared that they're actually over prepared to the point that they're robotic and they can't think outside of what, was their prepared script. Or they don't have the ability to actually bring your personality. Like when you are coming in here for a job interview or going to meet a recruiter, they're actually wanting to meet you. Like, I want to meet you. I want to, hear about your knowledge, skills, and abilities, and hear about your life. And we don't want the carbon copy person. Because
there's only one Jax.
There's only one Jax. We want the person that's going to come here and, bring their background and their life and their experiences. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And if we keep hiring the same person over and over again, then you're not actually filling the needs of an organization. Like you're wanting people that can bring different things to the table. I actually really appreciate the authentic self comment, but communication skills are huge in being able to actually just speak with the public. Being able to have, I would say, like a level head, in that there are 100% going to be situations where somebody's going to be angry with you. And you have to have that level of professionalism when you deal with people in the community, whether it's positive or negative. The other thing that I actually think is super important is, I don't really know how to word this other than not being a robot. like when it comes to this job, you do deal with, for lack of a better term, sometimes really horrible things, and you're dealing with the worst points in people's lives. And you're allowed to have some emotion. You're allowed to be sad about things that makes you relatable. You want to be relatable to the community. You don't want to be this robot that thinks that they have to act in a very specific way. You're just a person, and you need to just be yourself, would be a big thing for sure. If you could give advice to an applicant, what would it be, Laura? Since you're the only one in the screen right now. Jax has disappeared doing.
That's okay. She'll be back just as quickly as she left. Advice to an applicant. Again, be yourself. And if you be yourself, you'll be great. And that's it.
That's a good one. I would say actually for me, what would be a big thing, and this is again coming from a recruiter, would be have some humility. There is something to be said for being confident, but then being too confident. So humility would be a big one, as well as the ability to take constructive criticism. I have absolutely had applicants that have that I have dealt with that don't want to take the constructive criticism, and that actually speaks volumes to your character. So being able to take constructive criticism would be, yeah, and the humility would be a big one. Haley, maybe I'll ask you, what would be your advice for an applicant?
Well,
I'm gonna ask my moderator. I feel like you have had enough involvement.
well,
with
I have sat in on a couple info sessions, and I do meet the successful applicants at the end of the process.
You 1000% do, and then get to ask them 5 silly questions.
Yeah, yeah.
About their lives.
I would say just being open, being a good listener, like taking, like all of the folks that we've hired are just very kind. Yeah, just they're eager to get to know all of their colleagues. They're lovely to be around. Yeah. Yeah, I think that speaks very much to the being authentic.
I actually think another one would be is being honest, and this actually just like extends through if career in policing is for you, if this is what you want to do in your life, it's being honest. No one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes at some point in their life, and it's really being honest about the mistakes you've made and owning up to them. And this is like, you know, throughout your application process, and continuing into your career. If you, again, people make mistakes. So if you make a mistake, it's about owning up to your mistake and kind of going from there would be a big one.
Just to add to that, not only owning up to it, but learning from it.
Oh,
You know?
definitely.
Yeah, like figure it, like we're not robots. Nobody is a robot. Life would be so boring if we were all robots and didn't make mistakes. We're all gonna make mistakes. We're all gonna have snafus. Deal with it, learn from it.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say we've got a couple questions in the Q&A. I encourage people to keep adding questions. Do you want to ask a final question to Sergeant Jansen, and then we can jump into the Q&A?
Yeah. So my question, can you comment on what makes NWPD unique? What makes us different than the other policing organizations? If you want a career in policing, there's lots of places to choose from, but what makes NWPD different?
Yeah, I could talk forever about this. But
I left the most loaded question for last.
I know. Yeah, you know what? We truly are. We are a family. We're small enough here that every single person knows every other single person. And you know, our leadership here knows the families of our members. We truly have personal connections with each other. You know, that's hard to do in a larger organization. You know, what makes us unique is that I guess, I mean, truly that is it, is that we're small enough. We're small enough in that we know each other, but we're kind of big enough that we're not missing out on opportunities. We're not missing out on opportunities, not only within our own city, within our own building, but secondment opportunities. You know, it's really cool. I made the joke earlier. We have a ton of brothers and sisters here, a ton of aunts and uncles, and that's truly the case. And I'm not sure, I have never felt this with any other organization that I've worked for, from, you know, going back when I started working when I was 13 years old. You know, I've never felt such a team environment and such a family environment. It's it's pretty authentic. The authenticity here is
That's our theme word for the night.
it's a
It's
real
authentic.
thing. It's a real thing. And you know, being on secondment and working you know, within the Mountie environment, that's a whole, it's, you know, they do so many things differently than us. And it was really great to see that. And it was really great to recognize just how wonderful it is here, and that we have a home and we have a landing spot. And we have, you know, truly 4 walls and a whole bunch of people that care about us.
You know, I'm gonna echo some of your sentiments there, but obviously loved my secondment over at IHIT. What I've learned there was invaluable for my career and for my like professional development. And I met some great people there that I will have lifelong relationships with. In saying that though, the thing for me is that this place was always home. So regardless of like how much I enjoyed my time there, it's this place that's impacted me like personally and professionally. And again, this was why that ride along, like that sold it for me, was legitimately the dynamic of seeing how the shift works, and just, yeah, that like bond coming here and knowing that you really know the people that you work with. You know,
You do, and it's such a great opportunity to get to know the community, because we're a small city here and we're so integrated within the community that we work, you know, we work and we live and we connect with the community that we get to serve here. So that's pretty cool. What is it? We're 7 square miles or something. We're gonna run into people.
You definitely, honestly, you really get to know the people within the community. We have that big city policing, but small town. So you get those big city calls, but it's more of a small town, which is one of the things that I truly love. I don't know.
It is cool. It's really great driving around and having storekeepers and neighbors and whoever just wave, you know, arm out the window, wave. You know, I helped a guy carry a mattress into his apartment the other day in the top lot just because he was struggling. But like, it's what we do. We're out there with the people in this community, and the connections are just fantastic. So
I've heard some pretty great stories from people over the years of things like making connections with elderly people within the community, and like going for tea with them or like checking in on them to see how they're doing. Like it's stuff like that you can do here that actually is, I feel like, truly impactful. You know, you can have genuine conversations with people out when you're doing unrelated things. Done community things with Haley that's more media related, and gone and had conversations with business owners about concerns in the community, and then actually been able to take steps from those conversations to actually benefit, you know, the needs. So like, yeah, being able to do that here is huge.
Yeah, and even like, you know, there's so many sports going on in the city, so many fields, the ability to just drop into a rink and watch a Junior Bellies game, or we used to go up to the community center at Moody Park and play 3-on-3 basketball in the community center with the youth and the kids. And we just, you know, it's pretty fantastic to have not only the time, you know, obviously if something major comes in, we're all going, but it's really encouraged by this department, you know, to do things like that. And we have the ability to do it. It's pretty awesome. I gotta brush up on my ball skills again.
Basketball, not my thing.
Oh, it's fine.
I don't think all 5'4" me are gonna be
touche.
doing some dunks.
Shameless self-promotion. I actually have a AAA basketball championship ring from when I was on the 1994 Hi-Ax here. So
You mean 2003 Hi-Ax?
No, I just aged myself, but yeah.
I do see that there's some good questions, Haley. Do you think we should answer some of these?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. All right. And more questions are welcome. Keep them coming, folks. The Q&A button is at the bottom of your screen. All right. So let's and some of them we've already answered through our discussion, which is great. So some of these are quite recruiting specific. So this
Which
one
you
is-
got me. You got the recruiter. I'll answer your questions.
So
You got
for-
recruiting questions, you throw them up there, I'll answer them for you.
all right. So for Sergeant Tom, I'm turning 30 this year. I've been a plumber for 10 years and I'm wanting a career change. Being a police officer has always been my dream. I do not have my red seal, but is that necessary for applying?
Absolutely not. You don't need to have a red seal to apply. We actually more recently, this is actually going to be last June. And this is one of the things that I actually also really love about this organization is it's super easy to accomplish things. As long as you can articulate, the benefit or the need of why you need to do something. Up until last summer, we had the requirement that an individual needed to have 30 post-secondary credits or would have to have a red seal, would have to be either a business owner or military experience. So we were able to modify that and we take those other things or we would take an equivalent combination of education, training, and experience. So this is like a caveat that's more on a case-by-case basis, but it's meant to kind of include more mature candidates that have that work life, training, education experience, just not in a post-secondary setting. Obviously, as a plumber, you're a tradesperson, but you're also in a customer service environment. You're having to deal with those within the community. You're having to deal with people all the time, whether or not that be people that you're working with or, clients. What it comes down to for me is actually really looking at our competencies and seeing if you can come up with good examples. Think outside the box with those, but you can find them on our website. If you go to joinnwpd.org, there is 12 competencies listed. It's things like conflict management, decision-making, communication skills, organization and planning. It's stuff like that to me determines readiness. So don't necessarily think of it as I have a red seal or I don't have a red seal. Think of it as in what experiences do I have and do I have like some examples to show my knowledge, skills, and abilities in these areas would be a big thing for sure.
Fantastic. Now we've got another question for Sergeant Tom. It's recruiting focused. This person's wanting to have an in-person conversation about joining the NWPD and they are not sure where to go. Do they go to the JIBC? Do they come to NWPD?
you email me or call me. Let's see here if I can figure out how to share my screen because we did this earlier, Haley.
Yes, we did. You got it.
Here. Oh, I don't want that over there. Let's see. Is that just the slide, Haley? You never will see that.
That looks great.
So that is my contact information. So that's me at the top. That's my direct email. That's my direct office line. If you were to call me right now, it would ring. I'm not going to answer it right now. Kim Doxey is our recruitment coordinator. That is her email, and Patty Parsons is our office assistant. That is our recruiting team, is the three of us. And then that general email on the bottom is the recruiting email. If you send any questions, you can send them through to there. I get all of those, and I do try and answer all emails that come into the recruiting email. I'm also more than willing to try and schedule a telephone call for to chat with somebody, just to give them my 2 cents, maybe answer some more direct questions. Would be where you want to go to if you've got questions. That would be a good place. But we definitely will arrange conversations to answer your questions.
I've got another question that I think would be great to hear from both of you. So, can you speak about your experiences as women in policing, specifically relating to the physical aspect of the job? And in the events where using physical force is necessary?
I can definitely add my 2 cents in on that. I don't know if someone else wants to pipe up first, but I can tell you that actually was one of my, I would say, trying to think of my word here. One of the things that I thought was actually holding me back was the concern for that. I for sure definitely have had to use force within my career. In saying that, I would say 98% of the time, I have been able to use my communication skills to navigate out of anything that's been tossed my way. There's been a lot of instances where on the road, especially where you have to go to things where people are just in an elevated space, let's say. And it really comes down to being able to talk to that person and get them down out of there. I would say like not even a handful of times, like less than that have I actually been in some sort of like altercation by myself. For the most part, everything we go to is in a team dynamic. Rarely do you attend a call by yourself. So you always have that support. So if I was going to actually say, I don't think the physical aspect has ever been a detriment. I've never felt the impact of being a female in policing and having that be a negative. I don't know, Laura, if you want to throw in your 2 cents.
Yeah, I entirely agree. Very high, 90 some odd percent of the time we are able to just use our words to get through it. But I will say, you know, our training here is it's top tier in relation to not only the tools on our belt, but our de-escalation training that we have. If an incident moves beyond de-escalation, or sometimes, you know, depending, as Justine said, if somebody's in an elevated space and you do have to go in and use a certain level of force, our training, it's so thorough and it's so in depth and it's so top tier that I am fully confident in knowing that because of my training, everything's going to be okay. And I have had, you know, in 15 or 16 years, of course, I've had times where I've had physical altercations for various reasons. And I can tell you that every single time it's been safely resolved. You know, I've not been injured. And I've, you know, successfully with my team. And also remember, we talked about the city being 7 square miles. There's always somebody extremely close who, you know, if you don't have somebody with you at the call, there's always somebody extremely close by. And so one thing I love about this place is oftentimes if you are, let's say you end up interacting with somebody by yourself, well, everyone's listening to the radio. So essentially every other person on the road is going to hear you out with somebody, and all those cars are going to start just pointing your way. Just in the event that something does happen, they are even closer than maybe they would have been. So it's entirely based on our training, our own personal abilities to de-escalate, and the tools that we're given and the training that we use to use them.
I would say also is one of the things that you 100% learn is because we have such a team dynamic here and you get to know your team so well. If you hear somebody on the radio, you can instantly tell whether there is something going on and it's just a little bit out of the norm. Like you can, when I say this, I mean it. Like you can immediately tell something's going on. I need to go help that person. And yeah, that's one of the great things here. I've never felt like, you know, I'm off on my own little island and it's only up to me to solve this. Yeah, I've never felt the impact of being like a female in policing.
All right. I think this is a very fun question. All right. So you get to pretend to be a chief constable, because the question is, if you had the opportunity to create a new section or unit within the NWPD, what would it be? Or what would you like to see in the future?
Depends whether the chief is listening or not.
Everything's wonderful. We have everything we need.
This is like completely self-serving for me. And maybe for Andrew Lever, because he's currently our community engagement sergeant, who's now taken over as our media relations officer. I actually think we need to create a media unit. A unit that is purely media, and that is what they deal with. Because I would say the world has changed. Obviously, information is incredibly important for the public, whether that be through media releases, which I can tell, having done that job for I don't know, 8 months. How long did I do that before we had a little reorg? There's a lot of work that goes into that, and I would say there's a lot of, I don't want to say expectations, but the community needs to have transparency within police department. And it's not necessarily through just media releases, like it's all of the social media stuff that we do. And whether that's through a recruiting angle or like a community engagement angle, I personally think there's a lot that we can do on the media side. So it would be creating a specifically centered media unit would be my 2 cents.
That's an awesome answer.
You like that one, don't you, Haley?
I like that one. Yeah,
He's
just a
all
little.
over that one.
He was like, yes.
What about you, Sergeant Jansen? If you had the power and the resources, if you could create a new section or unit, what would it be?
You know, I'm on the spot here, and I just talked about, an hour ago being able to think on the spot, and I would have to put some more thought into that, but I do want to say I remember about, I don't know, I was very junior on the road in the first couple of years, and for some reason we had a whole bunch of blocks where we were dealing with we were either supporting the SPCA at calls that they would go to, or we had our own, I don't want to call them animal cruelty calls, but kind of going down that road of animal cruelty calls. And I was bound and determined as an 18-month member that we should have a unit that, or at least a member dedicated to investigating these animal calls where people, are obviously treating their animals terribly. I didn't have kids at the time, so animals that was my life, my cats. And so,
Cat lady.
Sorry?
The cat lady.
100% cat lady. It's the best. But you know what? I remember mentioning it to a senior NCO at the time, and the response was, "We'll do it."
Well, honestly, like this is one of the things, again, I really love about this organization is we have had people come up with business cases with regards to things that we were needing here. We just got a missing persons unit technically created. That came up through a business case. Same with our mental health unit, that came up through a business case. Somebody saw a need, and management was supportive in the creation of those. I think the one thing that and this comes from the investigative side, and I feel like you two would both agree with me, is I actually think we need a unit created that's more witness management centered. Would be a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Having worked in a dedicated witness security unit, or where, and actually also at IHIT dealing with witnesses, you don't, until you get into these positions where you actually have witnesses that you need to support all the way through to trial or resolution, you don't really realize the impact that perhaps the file or the investigation has on them, and the amount of support that they actually need. Individual one-on-one support from, not only the investigative team, but also from our victims assistance unit. But you don't really realize it until you're working with these witnesses or these victims who, may have various barriers for why they don't want to carry on with an investigation or go to court. So I 100% agree with you, Justine. I don't know, I don't know what that would look like, but certainly having dedicated witness support officers would be huge. Absolutely huge. I'm with you.
Dax, what would be your unit if you were going to create a unit? What would it be?
I don't know if we would need a unit for this, but I would like to see, something in place, because currently right now in my unit, we will investigate lots of different types of offenses that maybe some other departments might have a whole unit dedicated to. So one thing I would maybe, if my wish list could come true, because these offenses do get investigated by us, but maybe if we had someone specifically dedicated, and I'm trying to think how to word this, like a one detective, maybe for some child investigative files like child exploitation. So we do take that very seriously here at the New Westminster Police Department. It's something that the unit that I'm in investigates, but I do think that we have a need for an officer that, could be dedicated for those, because those are most vulnerable, special victims that you can have. And I would, that if I had like the money or the budget, I would like to see that.
Excellent answer. All right, this one is a little more recruiting focused, I think. So Sergeant Tom, what do you think about this? Someone's deciding between a career in bylaws or a career in policing.
Oh, definitely a career in policing. I see the other half of that question there. I have the questions open in front of me here, but
Very good, very good.
honestly, a career in policing, and I think you two would both agree with me as well, has been so rewarding. There are risks that come with this job, absolutely. If there is like I don't even want to say this out loud, so I'm not, but if there is some huge event that would occur that's a risk for the public, as a police officer, you're going in and your job is to protect the public. In saying that though, like the rewarding nature of the career outweighs that like exponentially. It's actually being able to make a difference to those within the community. If I was going to pick between the two, and obviously I'm biased in that I'm in recruiting and I am a police officer, but 1000% policing, and I would say the reward outweighs the risk. I don't know if you two want to add any on that one.
Totally biased, policing.
Yeah.
They're like easy answer. It's policing. It's totally policing.
And in another recruiting question for Sergeant Tom, can you speak to folks that have recently, they're newcomers to Canada, and what kind of experience would be beneficial for their application?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So obviously to get hired by the New Westminster Police Department, you obviously do need to be a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. We don't have the requirement that you have to be a permanent resident for a certain amount of time. You really just need the card to apply. So really what it comes down to is just individual experience for yourself. And this is where I mentioned it earlier, but it really comes down to competencies. Customer service positions are huge. A lot of people think that to get into policing, you have to do loss prevention, and you have to do security, or you have to, do corrections or sheriffs, or kind of along those lines. You don't necessarily need to do those things. Those are great experience, and you can develop your competencies really, really quickly. But really what it comes down to is having a position where you actually have to engage with the public, where you have to use your decision-making, you have to use critical thinking, you have to use, your communication skills and being able to navigate conflict. It's those competencies that matter. It's not necessarily the career or the kind of volunteer work experience you've had prior. Like it's maybe hard to explain a little bit, but like when you think about Jax or Laura or even myself, we've all had very different careers. We have hired people here that were former teachers. We have hired people that were former landscapers. We have hired people from corrections or CBSA or, security, but we've also hired people that were like municipal employees. In our next round here, we've hired, people that were, civilian employees within a police department, people, we've hired some reserves, that their careers on the side were actually trades. They were tradespeople. We have hired people that were, sheriffs and all of those things. So like, don't think about it as a career. Think about it as the experiences that you can actually get from those careers. So it's competencies. Like I always recommend people really look at it like competencies. And the 12 competencies that we look at, that we assess, are found on our website. So it's the joinnwpd.org. There's 12 on there. I really recommend that you take a look at those.
Sorry, I'm just going to add one thing. So just to piggyback off that. So yes, competencies, and she talked about, the different experiences of the different jobs, but especially for those people who are, new to Canada, they have those experiences. And I guess I would encourage them to apply, because it's important that you have a different culture, and that we're looking for diversity, and the people that you'll be dealing with when you're on the job, are also newcomers to Canada. So obviously she touched on the permanent resident part, but the competencies are key, and diversity is so important as well.
I like that addition. Now, out of respect for everybody's time, I think I'm going to choose one final question. But if we didn't get to answering your questions,
I actually think, I'm not sure how it works, Haley. Some of these I can probably just send the answer to. If you want to, why don't you ask another one and I can answer some of these individually.
Sure. It will be another recruiting focused one. If by chance I missed your question or we didn't get around to answering your question, if maybe Justine, you could share your contact info again, put it on the screen, and do not hesitate to send an email to Sergeant Tom. She will get back to you with your answer. All right. So I love this. This question states, I would like to send in my application as soon as possible. That's great news. But this person has a 3-week trip planned in the next few months. Would this interfere with my process, or should I wait?
Not going to interfere with your process. Well, actually, I'll give you a complicated answer, but first part would be, I encourage you to apply. If you have a 3-month trip booked in the middle of your application process, it's just being honest and saying like, hey, I'm actually away for this period of time. If you were interested in trying to get into our September class, because we hire for January, May, and September. So our May class starts next week. So September is the next class that we're looking at hiring for. Obviously, if your vacation is, a month in July, that might impact your process, and that's normally when a background is occurring, and you would have to be available for appointments. And saying that, if you're wanting to submit your application and you recognize that period of time might, impact the process for September, that doesn't mean that it's going to impact the process for January. So it might just delay kind of the length of time within your application process. Normally, if someone was to submit an application and it's like a perfect world, it's about 6 months is kind of the length. We have had them happen quicker. Like I did just hire somebody that I think their process was technically 3 months. So it can happen quicker, but for the most part is about a 6-month kind of window. So it just really comes down to when you apply, being honest about your availability, and recognizing that it might just delay you to a next class. It might not be what you potentially have in mind. Would be my answer.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone who attended. It's been a great group, some really thoughtful questions. And I also want to extend my thanks to my colleagues Sergeant Tom, Corporal Mula, Sergeant Jansen for sharing what your career in policing has been like to date. I think people found a lot of value in this. So again, if we didn't get to your question, you can go to our website, send an email to Sergeant Tom, and I think this format has been really good, and I think we'll consider doing more of these in the future. So thanks, everyone.
I wonder if I will quickly share screen again. Let's see if I can
Yes.
set up the proper screen here. Or we see questions.
There we go.
All my questions were up on the screen, sorry. So there's my contact info. So if I wasn't able to answer your question, honestly, just send me like a quick question or a quick email, and I can stay back here a bit and try and answer some of the questions that have come through. But yeah, thank you all.
Fabulous. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.